Hey guys, Rascal back with a brand new review. I was inspired by Bennet Dudley's one of his newest videos where he showcased his favorite animated villains. And while I wanted to do more of like a visual countdown showing the villains, I don't think YouTube would allow that many free range clips on there. They might have an issue with the you know what. So I decided to do it in this format. You had to pay close attention and see if any of your favorites ended up on this list. Now I will have some honorable mentions both here and in the description below, just in case you happen to miss it or need a little reminder. So let's get started. Number 10, I have Amon from Legend of Korra. I put him on the list because when Legend of Korra was first on, it was originally just going to be one season and one season only. So, for this brand new environment and new characters, they needed a new villain. And while we've already had a firebending villain from the original series as the big bad, this one actually took a whole new direction. We've had firebending bad guys, of course, waterbending bad guys. Later on, you would have an airbending bad guy, and we've had earthbending bad guys. But this one stood out from all the rest. Amon stood out because he apparently had no powers. He was a non-bender. But as you will know when you watch the show, what his true intentions were. And his goal was to get rid of bending altogether. And apparently he could have the power to take away a person's bending by doing the chi, the energy bending thing like Aang did. And it would take the person's bending away forever. And as you watch the show, you find out how this power came to be and how Amon became Amon. And to me, he was sort of like a mixture of Magneto and Slade. And what he was really intimidating is that it's just a guy that apparently had no powers, was able to make other people powerless. And rallying up together people that didn't even have bending powers, rising up, and that much power and influence on people made him a pretty big threat. And even though some of the characters couldn't even land a hit on him, he seemed almost untouchable and invincible. And I don't want to reveal what really happened with him, at the end of the first season, just in case there's some people that haven't seen it. But for the most time before then, he was a pretty big threat, which is why I had him here. Now for number 9, I have Stain from My Hero Academia Season 2. Now, I know not a lot of people who are on this channel watch My Hero Academia. Quick rundown, it's just a show, or an anime, about superheroes. It's more like, the quickest way I could say it, Sky High if it was an anime. And during the second season, they had what's called the Hero Killer arc. Stain was a man that believed that heroes had become nothing but idols for people to worship. They weren't true heroes because they were saving people and doing good just for monetary value. Like, they didn't really care about the people they saved. They just cared about the fame and glory and money that came with being a hero, because in that universe, being a pro hero, you could get paid for doing that work. And Stain saw this as like the most abominable way a hero could be. So like, in his way, this was his way of waking people up by pretty much taking out pro heroes altogether. If there were ones that didn't line up with his code of justice of what heroes should be, they were pretty much dead meat. And what happens in season 2 with this arc is pretty intimidating and scary. This guy could go around, and he even had this sort of blood-bending quirk where I know this is going to sound pretty gross, but if he took a person's blood, he could immediately just paralyze them and just pretty much take them out with no resistance whatsoever. And he was pretty scary. And the funny thing is that he changed the status quo for My Hero Academia and what it meant to be a hero. Are pro heroes really heroes for saving the day? Are they there for the money, or what's their purpose? It made you question about the hero society that the show had built up. Plus, he wasn't completely wrong about heroes, because if you watch the show, there are some heroes that actually are there specifically for the money and the money only, and pretty much don't really care what happens to the people, just as long as they look good. So on one hand, he's not totally wrong, but that doesn't mean you want to see him kill a bunch of people at the same time. So I put him at number 9 because he's still fairly new, and I've known the rest of these villains on the list way longer, but he's still a villain that you could understand his motives, but still don't want to let him get away with doing all these things, and it really made an impact on superhero fans in general. Now for number 8, Tirek from My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. Now, the shows have a villain pretty much every season, but a majority of them have reformed since their appearance. Tirek is one of the last remaining villains that have not turned good. It wasn't like with Discord where he turned good, or with the Changelings where they wanted to feel love and bring out love out and then feed off of it. Tirek apparently is sort of like, how do I put this? He's not the him of the show, but he was almost the ultimate bad until they had Grogar. Now, Tareq was the biggest game changer for My Little Pony. It's when a lot of people realized, like, this show isn't just for little girls. It really has some intense action moments when it came to the season 4 finale. And Tirek basically fed off all the magic of the ponies in Equestria. And the more power he fed off of, the bigger he got and the more destruction he could cause. And it's also led to one of the coolest scenes in the show where Twilight had a one-on-one battle with him. And I think just the idea of this little pony going up against this big, giant, red Centaur was just epic because they didn't even pull any punches. I mean, this caused just this huge celebration with just fighting fans all together. It's like, this is My Little Pony. I mean, you got this hardcore battle going on, but this is still the friendship is magic. But the thing about Tirek was that there really was no reforming him. And usually with the other villains they've had on there, they, come to an agreement or they change their ways. Later in a later episode, they come back. And this one, it didn't happen with Tirek. They had to just defeat him and take him down or else everything would be destroyed. And the fact that he was just this all-powerful centaur, and it was a really big battle for the main 6 and for Twilight in general, that's why I put him on the list. At number 7, I have Megatron from Transformers Prime. I chose Prime specifically because that is one of the first Transformers series I had seen. I hadn't seen animated, and I hadn't seen Robots in Disguise or some of these other versions that they have. The closest one I saw was the live-action version that Michael Bay did. And I really liked this version of Megatron from Transformers Prime because he was an incredibly intimidating threat. Very calculative, very strong, and a fantastic rival to Optimus Prime. And before then, I heard about Megatron, I know what he did in live action movies, but I just didn't realize how deadly he could be with Prime, because Prime pushed boundaries in terms of the action and the violence and how dark could it go. Well, Prime and Megatron really pushed it to beyond its limits. I mean, he was pretty much just stabbing Autobots left and right, but it was fine because, they were robots, which kind of have to question the values of Hasbro. But Megatron, I have heard from, Transformers, he's the ultimate evil. And of course, you had Arachnia, you had Starscream, you had Unicron. But Megatron was the big bad. He was the one to defeat. Because just by hearing what he does, and he wants all of the Energon and just wants to wipe out all the Autobots. He wants to take over Earth. He just wants nothing but power. Even after you hear his story of what happened before he became Megatron, it's like he started off with a good intention goal, and then he just spiraled on into this hatred and evil. And I thought that was just like a fantastic writing, both the backstory of the character and his how much he can come off as intimidating to the Autobots when they still fight on. So that's why I put him on the list. Now for number 6, now this was a little bit of a new addition. Green Goblin from Spectacular Spider-Man. Dudley showed me this show as well, and I enjoyed it immensely. And my all-time favorite Spider-Man villain, and the villain from just this show in particular, is none other than the Green Goblin. He's kind of like Marvel's Joker. I mean, everything about him just reminded me of Joker. And I love that Steve Blum did his voice because he was just absolutely perfect as the villain. I don't want to spoil too much from the animated series, just in case you haven't seen it. But the most I had seen of Green Goblin was from the live-action Spider-Man movies. I haven't really seen him since. I haven't seen the original 90s series. I haven't seen, like, the new ones from the current Spider-Man show. But that's the most I had seen was from the live-action, and he was, I think it was Norman Osborn. And I loved how they set up this villain, and you really didn't know, like, which Osborn is Green Goblin. Is it Harry? Is it Norman? They make you think it's one, then it's the other, then it really is the other one, and it's actually this one. And there's so many plots and twists with this villain that is also layered. And he also had one of the most ingenious quotes from a villain where he said about the mask, like, which one is the mask, either the one that you wear on your face or the one that is your face. And I had never heard anything like that coming from a character or a villain in general. And plus the fact that he's actually just really just crazy, super fun, which is kind of why I like the Joker sometimes, because they just, even though they're just crazy characters, Green Goblin's just nutty as a fruitcake, but he managed to have some good lines or just make you smile, but just how insane he is. Alright, and number 5 I have Slade from the original Teen Titans. Now, I know Slade has had a role in a lot of the Justice League comics and battling against Batman. But for Teen Titans, they made him sort of Robin's villain. And growing up, I didn't really understand what Slade was, or where did he come from. Now knowing his backstory from Justice League and DC Comics in general, now I have an idea of who he is. And making him Robin's villain is pretty much the same thing as making him Batman's villain. I thought that was a pretty cool idea, and knowing how much they pretty much got away with Slade in this show. I mean, back then they really couldn't show that much because it was still a kids network, but there were some lines and scenes from him that were really just scary and intimidating and kind of like Stranger Danger level of what are you doing? and turns out that wasn't the original comics, but this was as far as they could go with this TV show, which I'm kind of glad, because now there seems to be no limits on what you can show your kids on TV. But for Slade, he was one of the most serious villains on there. It was still a fun show with action, the perfect blend of action, drama, and comedy. But Slade was the main bad guy for several seasons. And no matter what, they just couldn't get rid of him. He just kept coming back. And he was still in mystery. He was like the toffee of DC Comics. And that is why I put him higher up on this list, because he's definitely a memorable villain, especially if you watch this version of him. And especially with his odd obsession with Robin, constantly want to make him his apprentice and make him work for him. Now, at number 4, I have Prince Lotor from Voltron Legendary Defender. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be upset, like, why is he a villain? He wasn't truly a villain. Now, you have to please remember that when you watch Voltron, I don't want to give too many spoilers if you haven't caught up with it. But there's a reason why I put him on here. So to avoid spoilers, I'll just keep this one short. Lotor is one of the most popular characters in all of Legendary Defender. He probably even outranks most of the Paladins in terms of popularity. But he had a pretty sad backstory. He was full of mystery when he was first on. You really didn't know if you could trust him or not. If he would side with the Paladins or side with his father. What was his intentions with the Gaular Empire? And not to mention that his design made a lot of fans happy. And considering his original intention for the 80s show was just he wants Allura, he wants to rule the planet. Pretty basic for a villain. And he pretty much way surpassed that and became incredibly likable and sympathetic with this reboot version. Now, unfortunately, what happened with this character, I cannot reveal. I know some people were not happy with having this character, and I was a little surprised that they went that direction with him. But just for the fact of the time he was on the show, he was definitely memorable, and I was pretty much engaged in everything that I wanted to know happened with this character. Now, going on to number 3, Lord Dominator from over Yonder. This one's pretty short. She's crazy. Crazier than Lord Hater himself. And her goal was pretty simple. Destroy everything and every planet in the galaxy. What she actually ended up succeeding in doing. Which is probably a first. But there is one catch to that. When you destroy all the planets, then she became bored. Which I kind of figure would happen with any villain. Like, you want to take over the world. At least when you take over the world, you have people around. If you blow up everything, what do you do then? You have nothing else to do. You're going to be bored. You destroyed everything and succeeded. So you kind of have a no-win situation with this. But on top of her pretty cool design and powers of using lava and ice, and she has one of the best villain songs ever made, titled I'm the Bad Guy. And pretty much a pretty great villain in general, not just for One Over Yonder, but for Disney as well, since their villains seem to tend to get a lot of popularity. Now, on to our final 2. We have number 2, we have Chase Young from Xiaolin Showdown. This one I'll also keep short as well. Chase Young was a force to be reckoned with in the world of Xiaolin Showdown. But the thing was, he was also an honorable villain, knowing that he was drinking Lao Meng soup from Hannibal Roy Bean and what turned him into this immortal kung fu master. And knowing that he actually still has a good side to him made him one of the most interesting characters of the show. And Omi, knowing that there was good in him and he would not stop trying to help him, come back into the light and see it and bring out the good that you knew it was in him. And he was also very calculative and very mysterious in the way that he worked. How did he get this giant, luxurious palace inside the mountains? How did he get all of these warriors to work for him that can also turn into cats? He got this scary lizard form he could transform into at any time. He is a master of pretty much all martial arts. And just the character himself, it was very, very intriguing, to be honest. And unfortunately, his story was messed up in Xiaolin Chronicles, which isn't even canon. So this point, I guess, is not technically ruined. But that version of him was not really enjoyable at all, because they kind of wiped out any sort of likability with him for that version. Now, at number 1, last but certainly not least, Van Kleiss from Generator Rex. I really love this villain. I don't know why, when we watched Generator Rex for the first time, and I thought, okay, he's going to come back once or twice. In general, he was a pretty much recurring villain. I like that he was pretty much kept in mystery of what was intentions. How did he know Rex? What was the secret behind him that would help Rex with his powers and with the nanites? And just as it went along and you guys near the end, you found out what his true intentions were, was pretty diabolical, considering what happened when he had a history with Rex's parents. And I really love his theme song that he has. He has his own little theme song that you can actually hear on YouTube if you type it in. And it sounds like this end of the world epic showdown. And I just love it. He has the most kick-ass theme ever. And he's a pretty cool villain. He's able to control plants and animals and everything with just nanites. I mean, just with one hand, he can control all. There's an entire other, almost look like another realm. It's a part of Earth, but this other reality-like place where he controlled the ground, the trees, the plants, the animals, the buildings. Everything was at his whim. And he had this army of evils willing to follow him. He was like a humanized Zarkon. And seriously, he's just one of the coolest villains ever. And his powers are really cool. He could take away nanites like Rex could. Rex could take away nanites, and Van Kleiss could give away and take away nanites. It was sort of like this polar opposite with Rex, what made him the perfect villain or foil to him. And Rascal family and other fellow viewers, those are my top 10 animated villains. Do you agree with my list? And did some of your favorites make it onto here? Or are the ones that you wish that I had taken into more consideration? I love to hear your comments. And I'll wait you guys to tell me your favorite villains if you haven't already done a video that I haven't seen yet. You're welcome to tell me who your favorites were on this list, or just yours in general. It could be top 10, top 5, top 20 for all I care. I just really want to hear what you think. Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed this. And you all have a happy Halloween in October. Later.